All right, so we have Ed Cunliffe here. Ed, here's the mindset that we're all coming onto this call with. We're all a bunch of new guys. We want to hear how you're explaining the business to us, the new guys. You know, Joe, Sebastian, myself, we all believe that you're probably the best guy in the business at just explaining the business. You've got very creative analogies. You keep it real smart. You keep it real fun. And I know it, like keys to success and things, you'll run like a little opportunity meeting, but it's usually like 90 minutes. So I know about a month ago, I challenged you. I'm like, hey, Ed, you think you could give the patented Cunliffe opportunity meeting in a 30-minute soundbite, and you're up for the challenge? So that's really the spirit of the call. We're all hoping to take something from this call that we can regurgitate to our newer people, but how do you really run an opportunity meeting for your new guys?
Got it. Well, I hope everyone's doing well. I've never tried to do this in 30 minutes, so we'll see what happens. But a couple of things before I get into it. I always would run an opportunity meeting every single week, same day, same time, same place. Here's why. I've always approached this business based on what got me to consulting. I needed to see an opportunity meeting early on. Otherwise, I would have probably put 2 and 2 together and said, you know what, I don't really want to do this door-to-door thing for very long, and I would have bounced. But I saw one my first week, and it was very helpful. I saw one my second week. It was more helpful. By my third week, I would say that it made sense because there was a lot of new information going into my brain, right? I was trying to learn the field and the pricing and the promotions or whatever. So I would always do one same day, same time, same place. So there's certainty, because I want to hire sharp people. Sharp people are going to have a lot of questions. I don't want my 22-year-old new leader explaining the business to the new guy who's sharp. I want to explain it to them. So when that new guy has a bunch of questions that my leader isn't qualified to answer, I want my leader to say with confidence, hey, those are great questions. Ed is going to cover all of that for you on Thursday at 8 o'clock in the morning. Versus, I think in a lot of offices, the leader goes, yeah, I'm not sure if we're doing an opportunity meeting this week. I'll let you know. And then they try and answer the questions themselves and they screw it up most of the time. So that's the first thing I'll say. All right, so here's my opportunity meeting in 30 minutes. I am from just south of London. I grew up in a middle-class family where my mom and dad were in the rat race. Monday through Friday, they got up early, they went to work. They came home late at night. My mom made the dinner, we watched some TV, we went to bed. Repeat, and then we kind of lived for the weekend. My mom and dad never had any extra money. Whenever my mom and dad would argue and there was tension in the house, it generally always boiled down to money and stress and whatnot. I came over to the States on a golf scholarship. I played 4 years of college golf. I turned pro, and that was a big turning point in my life, not because my golf career took off, but because I was working at a couple of high-end country clubs and hanging out with very successful people for the first time in my life on a regular basis. So I would spend 4 or 5 hours with somebody that had built, you know, a big real estate company or mortgage firm or stock brokerage firm. And because I was the friendly English golf pro, I became buddies with these guys, and I got access to them for 4 or 5 hours that I would not normally have gotten. And I asked them questions. And what happened for me over those 2 years was I fell in love with their lifestyle. I had figured up until then I was just going to do what everybody else was doing, which was, you know, we're told, right? There's like a system. We're told at a very early age, pay attention at school, get good grades so you can go to a good college, get good grades, then get a job with a company, and you work there for 40 years, and then you retire, and then you're old, and then you die, right? While hanging out with these guys at the golf course, it made me realize that there are different routes that you can take. And what I figured out hanging out with these guys was that 80% of them at least had started and built businesses. And because they built successful businesses, there's a thing called leverage, where the business was running in the background and they were able to play golf 3, 4, 5 times a week. They were able to travel the world and do cool, interesting things, and they were making millions of dollars a year. And that was the first time that it dawned on me that, wow, I think that's a better option than being an employee. The problem with being an employee is there's only one of you and there's only 24 hours in a day, right? So your opportunity is always going to be somewhat limited, okay? So anyway, when I left the golf business, I asked for some advice. What should I do from these members who are successful? And they all said you should get into sales, because sales is kind of the foundation of every company, and not everybody can do sales, but if you can do sales, that's where the money's at. There's always going to be a demand for it. And then one of the guys at the golf course, who was arguably the most successful, said, the most important question you can ask in an interview is, if I'm the guy, where can I be a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now? So I asked that in every interview. And I went to about 10 interviews, and 9 times out of 10, when I asked that question, the person interviewing me didn't really know the answer, or the answer was pretty vague. Maybe Jim retires. But then I stumbled across this business and I met Brandy Park. She was my promoting owner, or still is. And she was 26, I was 25. And when I asked her that question, she looked me in the eyes and said, look, if you're the guy, you can be running your own office in a year or so. And that sounded promising. Obviously, I was skeptical. Obviously, I had no idea what was going on, but I'm the kind of guy that will try anything twice. So I gave it a shot. And my knee-jerk reaction to the field when I went out there was, oh, hell no, I'm too good for this. I have a college degree. But then I remembered, my 2 years prior at the golf course, that all the guys told me kind of the same thing, that, a good opportunity is usually dressed up in workman's clothes. So most people don't recognize it. And I kept hearing pay now, play later, or if you do stuff now that other people don't want to do, you'll be able to do stuff later they can't do. And so I connected the dots and I started, and kind of the rest is history. So I was promoted to assistant management in 5 months, assistant manager for 5 months. And I opened up my first office out in Denver, Colorado, because I'd never been out west, and I was single and I had nothing holding me back. So I just said, what the hell, let's go to Denver. Went out there with 5 guys, got off to a slow start because I stopped doing the things that I was doing as an assistant manager when I had 22 people on my team. I got a little executivitis there for the first 3 or 4 months. But then I figured it out. And by the end of my first year, I had over 50 guys in my office, and we're off to the races. My first 2 years, I opened up 5 outside deals. I got the opportunity to come back to Atlanta because, to put things in perspective, there was a hot new campaign with Bell South where we got the opportunity to introduce DSL to people. 10 to 12 times faster than dial-up, right? So I've been back in Atlanta ever since, and I got promoted to consultant in 5 years. I'll explain what that means here in a minute. Senior national in 8 years, and then executive consultant in 12 years. And so that's my story. All right, so question for the room. Let's see, Grant. Do you think money is important?
Yes.
Okay. Anybody got a different opinion on that? Everyone agrees it's important. Now, is it the most important thing? I don't think so. I think the most important thing is your health. If you don't have that, you really haven't got anything. And certainly a lot of people think family is the most important, but if you don't have your health, you certainly can't help out your family. So I think your health is number 1, your family is number 2, and I'd put money at number 3 because you can help your family out with that. Reason I asked that question is because did you know that all of us pretty much, the beliefs that we have right now that we may not have gone back to challenge for 25, 30 years, whatever, we set most of our beliefs by the age of 7. If you're a University of Florida fan, you probably decided to do that by the age of 7. Give me 1 second. Hey, James or Max, can you let the dog in, please? Scratching the door. Help me out. Let the dog in. So yeah, I'll tell you a funny little story. When I was about 6, my mom and dad went to a Van Morrison concert, and they were really excited about going. The next morning when I saw them, I said, "How was the concert?" And they said it was terrible. He didn't want to be there. He didn't interact with the crowd whatsoever. Go upstairs, go upstairs, go upstairs. He did the minimal amount of songs, and then he got off the stage. And so for a good 30 years, I held the belief that Van Morrison sucks. And so whenever anyone asked me, "Do you like Van Morrison?" I would say, "No, he's terrible." Well, about 13 years ago, or 15 years ago, probably, I started dating my wife, Kelly, who likes Van Morrison. So he's on various playlists. So over the years, I would hear a song and I'd be like, "This is pretty good. Who is this?" She was like, "Ed, it's Van Morrison. How do you not know that?" I'm like, "I don't like it." But then I'd hear another song and I'd be like, "This is good. Who is this?" "It's Van Morrison, Ed." And then so on and so forth. Okay. So long story short, it turns out I do like Van Morrison. I probably always did, but I held that belief for over 30 years. Why is that relevant? Well, a lot of people will never be successful based on their financial blueprint. Okay. If you've ever heard somebody say money is not important, they will never accumulate a lot of money because they're going to justify that it's not important. Therefore, it's not worth putting in the time and effort. Right? When somebody says money is not important, that is exactly what they're doing. They're justifying why they don't have it. Right? Or maybe you heard money doesn't grow on trees. Maybe you heard you just need enough to get by. If you don't go back and challenge that belief, you will never, ever become wealthy. You will self-sabotage yourself, right? And so I do think money is important. When my mom got cancer of the esophagus in 2000, probably about 8 years ago. In England, we have a socialized medicine system, so everybody gets it. It's free, but it sucks. And so when I found out that my mom had cancer of the esophagus, I called my dad and I was like, "Is mom okay?" "Well, she's scared, whatever." And I said, "What's the deal?" And he said, "Well, they're going to get her in about 4 or 5 months." And I said, "Hell no, let's get her into a private hospital." And that happened. And she got in on the next Tuesday and the operation went well. And, here we are now, right? 8 years later, knock on wood, everything's good. What form of payment do you think the private hospital accepted? What do you think, Rami? M&Ms? Do you think we called them up and said, like, "I really love my mom. Let me pay with this overflowing of love that I have"? No, they accepted cash money. That's the only form of payment that they took. When COVID hit and my 7-year-old boy is now trying to learn school on his iPad, he might as well have been just licking the window, right? So we put him in private school. What form of payment do you think they accept? Okay, you got it. So it is important. And you need to kind of take a look at your relationship with money, because the only people who accumulate a lot plan on accumulating a lot, right? You don't just end up with, $25 million. It's kind of the plan to go big. All right, so as I alluded to before, we all kind of went through the system. We were told certain things. What's interesting is I was told certain things by my teachers at school. Looking back, none of my teachers drove nice cars. None of my teachers were multimillionaires. None of them were, living large, which is interesting because they're the ones giving me the advice, right? The American dream, let's talk about that. The American dream is you do all those things, you get good grades, you go to a good school, you get a good job, right? And then you end up with a semi-detached house, 2 cars, and you take 1 vacation a year, right? All right, it's not too bad. Here's the problem. The middle class in the US is getting absolutely, completely squeezed out, and this is not an unusual thing, and this has already happened in a lot of countries. I went to India about 10 years ago. You have massive wealth, massive poverty, right? The middle class in the US is getting squeezed out, okay? If you take the median across the board of everybody who works in the US, this includes entry-level minimum wage, all the way up to the 78-year-old partner at the law firm that makes $3 million a year. Across the board, the average American who is working makes $60,000 a year. They don't bring home $60,000. They, again, on average, taxes are different in different states, but across the board, they bring home just less than $47,000 a year. The problem is the average cost of living is $53,000 a year. So the average middle-class American is going in debt about $6,000 a year. If you, again, you can fact check me as much as you want, right? But if you look at what credit card debt has done in the last year, you'll see that it's tripled, right? Because it's just math. It's mathematics, okay? So, you know, I don't think the American dream is what anybody in this room wants. And certainly your goal should never be to be average. But a lot of people are when it comes to their career. And think about that. Why are people willing to be average in their career? You wouldn't be average in anything else in your life. You would never go see a movie that was billed as coming out in August, a really average movie directed by a very average director and produced by an average producer with some very average actors. You wouldn't go see that movie, right? You wouldn't go see the personal trainer that promises that they can get you having an average body, right? So anyway, average, in my opinion, is not an option. A lot of you guys in this room are in your 20s. When I was at the golf course, everyone told me, Ed, get it done in your 20s. That's the time to grind. That's the time to separate yourself from the crowd. Generally speaking, in your 20s, you have more energy and less responsibility. So I would highly suggest that now would be the time to go for it. Because worst case scenario, if it doesn't work out, you can always be average. That's what most people are going to do. You can always go get the job with the salary, right? That's not what we have here. We have an opportunity that's a little different, okay? The real question I think you should ask yourself to have a great life is write down these two letters. R, as in rabbit, equals P, as in Paul. And here's where you got to be authentic and honest with yourself. R stands for your reality, right now, today. Not your bullshit Facebook, social media, TikTok reality where people are just putting their best life up on there, right? Which isn't real, which, you know, confuses people. No one's like putting, oh, I'm cleaning the toilet today because it had some shit on there, right? No one's posting that, right? They're all living their best life. So take a look at your reality. How's your health? How's your relationships? How's your bank account? What kind of debt do you have? Okay. Now your P is your potential. And I can tell you at the age of 25, my R did not equal my P. I felt like I had a lot more to offer, right? And so it's a good question to ask yourself, okay? And I think a great life is if you can get, you know, maybe we don't ever fully tap into our potential, but the closer you can get to it, the better. That's kind of how I look at it, right? So in order to do well and be successful, it's very important that you have goals. The reality is everything in your life happens twice. So let me see here. Ricardo, at some point, you didn't own that pink purpley tie. So at some point, you in your brain, you said, I need to get a new tie. I don't know if you went online or if you went to a store, but again, it was all happening up here first before it happened in reality. Then in a moment, you got that tie, whether it was online or in the store, you grabbed it, you compared it to a couple of other ones, and you said, this is the one I want. Now you have it. Well, now you look around on your desk. Everything on your desk at some point you didn't have, right? These AirPods, I didn't have them. And then a bunch of people told me you got to have them. They're great. Here's why. And I was like, I think I'm going to get them. And now I have them in reality, right? Well, there's no difference between these AirPods and having a beach house. People that have beach houses, there's plenty of them, thought about it before they actually got it. It didn't magically just show up one day, right? And so it is extremely important that you write down your goals. Most people have very weak goals. Most people, if you ask them, what are your goals? They say shit like, I just want to be happy. What does that even mean? So vague goals lead to vague results. Clear goals lead to clear results. So, if you're just saying your goals, it's like cigarette smoke. It's right there for a minute and then it's gone. Okay. So one of the best pieces of advice I ever got was from a guy called Bob Ficazia. And he told me that I needed to sit down in a quiet room with a pen and a piece of paper, no distractions, and my favorite beverage, and write down, what do I want out of life? And the rules are, it's what you want, because you're going to be the one doing the work, not what your parents want. A lot of people drop out of medical school their third year because they realize, I really don't want to do this, right? Write down what you want. And so I did that. I did that in 2001. And the top of my list was to help out my parents. Motivation is pretty short term. Inspiration tends to be a lot more robust and long term. So my inspiration in the field was to help out my parents. And you write down your goals. You then have to find a vehicle that can get you to your goals, right? If I go work at the post office, with all due respect, even if I'm the guy, I'm the best there's ever been, I'm probably not going to be able to hit my goals. The vehicle doesn't match up to my goals, right? You can pedal really, really fast on a stationary bike, faster than anyone's ever pedaled before. You still don't go anywhere. And there's a lot of jobs like that. There's a lot of jobs that have fairly attractive terms on the entry level, but not a whole lot of growth and upward mobility on the back end, right? So you got to find a vehicle. And once I understood this vehicle, this business, I knew if I was really good at it, I could hit all of my goals, right? You can make millions of dollars in this business, and I'll explain. Once you've got your goals, you found a good vehicle, you simply have to ask yourself, am I willing to do the work? That's it. And if you are, then over time, you'll just check everything off the list. If you are not, then you simply have to start crossing things off the list. And you've got to write your goals down and put them somewhere where you're going to see them at least twice a day. So I had my goals on my mirror of my bathroom of my shitty apartment, and I would see them twice a day because, believe it or not, English people do brush their teeth. So I would see it first thing in the morning, last thing at night. Anytime I was losing my focus, which I did, and anytime I was getting negged out, which I did, I would look at my goals. And I already told you what my most important goal was in 2001, and I just felt like I had to come through for my parents. So I got it done. Here's the deal. Most people are not very committed to their job. We already know that to do well in anything, you have to have a high level of commitment. If you don't have a high level of commitment in a relationship, it is not going to work out. If your attitude towards your relationship is, I don't know, we'll see how it goes. If she annoys me, I'm out. It ain't going to work out. I annoy my wife 12 times a day. There has to be a level of commitment. So why are people not committed? I'll tell you why. Their target isn't big enough. We already know the average person makes 60 grand a year. After taxes, they're going to bring home less than 47, and their cost of living is 53. That's not exciting, right? So the target, the prize, the purse, the swag, whatever you want to call it, is not exciting. So because there's a low target, there's a very low commitment to the job. So a lot of employees are simply waiting until 5 o'clock so they can get out of there. So the good news is, the bigger the target, the bigger the prize, the swag, the purse, the higher your commitment will be. Okay, so I'll give you a silly example. Let's see here. Alice, you can just nod or shake your head. But Alice, if I put 6 feet worth of smashed, broken glass, nasty shards. That's 3 foot wide, 6 foot long, 6 inches deep. And I said, take off your socks and shoes and walk across that glass, and I'll give you $200. Would you do it? I mean, this is nasty glass, bare feet. Would you do it? $200. Can't believe you've been thinking about this. No, you wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it because you know what's going to happen, right? Now, would you do it for $25 million? I would just knock it out. I mean, it wouldn't take very long to do it. You just, right? And so the thing hasn't changed, right? Walking across the glass hasn't changed. The after effect hasn't changed, right? You're going to cut your feet open. You're going to have pieces of glass in your feet. You're going to have to go to hospital. They're going to have to treat you. They're going to bandage you up. You're probably going to be hobbling around for a couple of months, right? But you would do it because the target led to a high level of commitment, right? Nobody would go buy Mega Millions or Powerball tickets if the jackpot was $200. The prize isn't worth it. The target isn't worth it. Now, when it's 400 million, people are like, yeah, I'll throw $10 at that, right? So I would encourage everyone in this room to really figure out your one, and I would really encourage you to think really big. Because again, the only people who do big things plan on doing big things, right? Human beings are all optimistic, right? If I were to, we could play a little game right now where we jump in a time capsule, and it is now July the 7th, 2032. Where's everyone at? Tell your partner where you're at. Let me guess, everyone's crushing it. Everyone's doing great. A lot of you have multiple properties, multiple vehicles. Everyone's doing great, okay? Nobody is saying, I'm divorced. I'm heavily in debt. I'm working on my 8th job, right? Because we're all optimistic. But the reality is the average person, 50% of people get divorced. What's the stat? I mean, like 75% of the US is paycheck to paycheck, right? So anyway, so hopefully we're all going to be around 10 years from now, right? Because the only other alternative is death, right? So let's plan on being around 10 years from now. We're all going to be in different spots, and it's all going to be based on decisions and actions, right? Wherever we are 10 years from now, it won't be by accident, right? So that is why you're going to get really clear on what your goals are. Most people never get clear on their goals, right? Who in the room knows somebody who's a friend or in the family that is at a job right now that they don't like the boss, they feel like they're not getting paid enough? Everyone's got their hand up, right? Well, that was never their plan. Like in kindergarten, when the teacher was like, what do you want to do when you grow up, right? Nobody said, stuck in middle management, waiting for 5 o'clock to roll around. But there's millions of people that do that. Well, how? Well, it's because they're sleepwalking. They're going with the flow, see what happens, right? But there's an old saying by Yogi Berra: if you don't know where you're going, you'll end up someplace else. So that's why it's really important to get very clear on your goals. Okay, so our business, clearly there's a lot of demand for what we do. That's when you're looking at any business, there has to be demand for what you're doing. There's always going to be a demand for what we want, for what we do. All of our clients have an insatiable appetite. No matter how well we do, they always want more. So that's a good thing. Face-to-face sales at the end of the day is the most effective way to complete a sale. Okay, people like people, and that's what we do. Another nice thing about our business is that we are not dependent on tech advancements, tech improvements. This has crushed other companies and opportunities in the past. If you look at Blockbuster Video in the 90s, they were crushing the game. Now they're done. They're out of business. That was because they got negated by technology. Same thing with Kodak. We do not pull all of our eggs in one basket. It's actually the opposite. Like we'll just ride the wave of technology. You know, I made my first $1 million with DSL. That's completely irrelevant now, right? So some of you guys in the room, you will, let's say 10 years from now, you're going to have 25 offices, 50 offices, whatever. You're going to have an organization. There's a good chance you're going to be working with a company that doesn't exist right now, that has a technology that hasn't even been thought of. So again, we can just ride the wave of technology. We are not dependent on technology, okay? And obviously Moore's law, everything is going to improve. It's going to get smaller, faster, cheaper, right? The other thing that's hurt a lot of companies is globalization. With the internet, certainly it makes sense to hire somebody who's educated in India, who's willing to do the job, you know, phone rep for American Express, $5 an hour. They're extremely qualified. They can do their job. It makes sense for American Express to hire that call center in Mumbai, right? Versus paying somebody $22 to do it in Phoenix, Arizona. Okay, with us, we obviously do face-to-face sales. So if we're going to do face-to-face sales in Phoenix, Arizona, everyone has to be in Phoenix, Arizona, right? Our business is going to continue to grow and flourish and all that fun stuff. Then I go into how you get paid as a manager, because I needed to see that. I need to understand. I'm like, okay, this girl Brandy's doing well, but how? And so I explained, like, all right, AT&T, they're about a $300 billion company. Guys, what do they want? Do they want our friendship? What do they want? No, they want sales. They're a Wall Street driven company. They want to keep their stockholders happy, blah, blah, blah. So here's the deal. They pay us to get them new customers. They pay us a rep fee, a management fee, and an administration fee. The rep fee goes to the rep, who always gets the biggest chunk, as you should, because you're the one who's doing the work. You pitch the customer, you build the relationship, you close the deal. So, hey, Mr. Manager, what does the average rep make in this office per day? Let's say $200. Okay. By the way, I was in Rebby's office last week. Her average rep made $402 per day last week. She had a $56,000 wire. Why do they pay the rep $200? Okay, they did the work. Now, the manager also gets paid. Okay, and on AT&T, it's about 40% of what the rep's getting paid. So the manager gets paid $160. Why does the manager get paid? Well, the manager hired you, recruited you, is responsible for the expenses. And let's be honest, if Rebby was showing up here to the office on a bicycle every day, that probably wouldn't be very motivating, right? And then there's an administration fee. There's a company out in California, the brokerage company, essentially, they land the big national accounts, they process the payments, and they support the offices, right? Sometimes I say sick or sometimes I don't. I certainly don't go into any depth. Okay, so they get, let's say, 140. Okay, let's add this up. AT&T just paid $400 for this customer. Okay, now if you're getting paid $200 on a sale, how much is that customer's MLC going to be roughly? $150. Okay, cool. So how long do you think the average customer stays with AT&T? 30 months. Because people switch, that's what they do. People like to switch. So we know that their bill is going to be $150. Okay, they're going to stay with them for 30 months on average. Just do the math real quick. 30 times 150. That means that AT&T is going to get a return of $4,500 in monthly recurring billing. Is that good business for AT&T? Yes, because they're already paying us $400, right? Okay, so that's why they want us to do more and more sales. It just makes sense. Okay. Now, if I'm a rookie owner and I have 5 people in my office, let's do the math. First of all, if I'm a rookie owner with 5 people, I'm going to be going in the field as well. Okay. But you see this owner stroke here, $160 times 5. Okay. That's $800 a day. that the manager is going to get paid. Okay. Generally, we work 6 days a week. So 800 times 6, it's whatever it is, $4,800 a week times 50. That's $240,000 a year. Now, is that profit that the manager gets to keep? No, they've got to pay taxes. They've got expenses, yada, yada, yada. Okay. But, you know, in this scenario here, this manager's, you know, probably making 80 or 100,000 a year, because we're not even including what they're making in the field, right? Now, do you have to have 5 people in the office? New guy, no, you can have 10 people. Let's do it with 10. Let's do it with 20. Let's do it with 30. And this for me, I'm a timeout. This was when I was like, oh, yeah, you could have 30 reps, right? 40 reps, 50 reps. So I just do the math. Okay, so with 20 reps, now your revenue is whatever it is, 960. Okay, we have owners in my organization who have $50,000 wires. You know, I can literally go over the high rollers, you know, so I have it written down here. Anyway, so, you know, if the manager's getting paid 50,000, we know that about 60% of that is going to pay the reps commissions. So that's about 30,000. And then the manager in this scenario is getting paid 20,000 minus taxes, minus expenses. You know, so if you're a top manager in this business, you know, you can certainly make, you know, $400,000, $500,000, $600,000, $700 a year. You can, it's math, right? Does every manager make that? No. Does everyone who plays in the NFL get the maximum contract? No. The best players do, right? Because they're adding the most value. But my point is that, you know, you get what you earn, what you deserve. Now, let's say that Ed is running the office and he has a rep in his office, Rebby, who's pretty good at the sales. She's making $1,300 a week, okay, as a rep. Well, if she's making $1,300, then Ed, as the manager, is making about $1,000 a week from the sales that Rebby does. Okay, it's 50 grand a year. Let's play devil's advocate. If there is no incentive for Ed to promote out Rebby, what might Ed do? Keep her in the office as a sales rep, right? This happens a lot of times in corporate America where people don't get the promotion because somebody else isn't benefiting from it. Now, if I don't promote Rebby, this whole business model breaks down. The whole fabric of our business is the opportunity component. I would not have gone in the field and worked as hard as I did 6 days a week had I not had the opportunity to run my own business, okay? So the good news is we want to promote Rebby. When Rebby gets promoted out, she signs a contract directly with the client. It's the same contract that Ed has. So if one of Rebby's reps gets paid $200, Rebby, the manager, is getting paid $160, exactly the same as Ed is over here, okay? So you can do better than your promoting manager. It happens all the time, right? If Rebby does 100 sales and Ed does 50, Rebby's going to get paid twice as much, right? Now, let's look at it from Ed's point of view. When I promote Rebby, I'm losing my top person, and I think she opened up with 6 or 7 leaders. So in the short term, what's going to happen to the sales in Atlanta? They're going to go down. We've got 7 less people selling in Atlanta, okay? I know that, but that's also how we're going to get this office opened up. From AT&T's point of view, they want to be in every single market, right? So does it make sense for Ed to send a road trip from Atlanta every week to St. Louis? No. What makes more sense is to open up an office in St. Louis. So that's exactly what happened, okay? Now, because I've helped AT&T and their $300 billion in assets and their very deep pockets, because I've now helped them open up another market, here's the deal. AT&T pays Ed a bonus based on the sales that are done in St. Louis, okay? Doesn't come out of Rebby's pocket, doesn't come out of the rep's pocket, it comes out of AT&T's very deep pockets, cool? And then I just draw my spider graph a little bit. I then hand out the SIGCOR override sheet because I want people thinking big. Like I asked in my second interview, is there anything beyond management? So I show people the override sheet. I'm like, here's the deal. All right, so let's look at the sheet. If look at the bottom, if I have one outside deal, I get paid 4%. So if Rebby's office has a $20,000 wire, Ed, the promoting owner who promoted her out, gets 4% of that. It's $800 a week, gets paid out monthly. So that would be about a $3,200 a month bonus just for me helping somebody, get to their opportunity, right? And then I draw it out. I draw it out for them and I go, look, I promoted this person and they promoted that person and whatever. And by the way, when I was new, I used to use Brandy's org as the example because I didn't have one. And I would tell people the reason I don't have one is because I'm brand new, but I'm going to have one, right? And I explained to them like organizational consultant. When I got promoted to organizational consultant, I had 11 offices. My monthly bonus before I got promoted was 8,000. The next month after I hit the qualification, it went up to 18,000. It more than doubled for me because I had strong first gens. And I showed them the percentages. Okay, so now I'm an organizational consultant. Now I'm getting 5%, whatever it is, 2.5%, 1.5, whatever it is. You guys have seen that, right? So as an organizational consultant, mathematically, you're going to make a couple of $100,000 minimum, in bonuses. Plus, you're still running an office. Chances are you're running a pretty good office because you know what you're doing. And then senior national, and I give them my timeline. I did this in 2007, 2010, 2014, and I go, right now I'm here at level 7. And so last week when Rebby's office had a $50,000 wire, I got paid a 7% bonus on that. That's $3,500. I got this guy, Justin Hageman over here. His wire was 46,000. So I get 7% of that. You can do the math, $3,000. And here's what's cool. Justin's got this guy, Cole Gardner, who had a $46,000 wire. I didn't hire that guy. I didn't train him. I didn't develop him. Like I'm buddies with him. I play plenty of golf with him at this point. But, my bonus from Cole's office is 5% or whatever it is on the chart. Okay. And so then I'm like, so as a senior national, you can certainly put yourself in a position to make 6 figures a month, 7 figures a year. Right. And you can also stop running an office. So I officially stopped running an office in 2017, 18. I kind of dabbled a little bit. Reason being, that was always my goal. Like I figured I would have, get married and have kids at some point. And I have 3 young boys and my twins were born in 2017 and I just wanted to be around. So I now have an office in my house and I do stuff like this. I travel to offices and I, do lots of calls and that's what I do, and that's really it. And then I asked them if they have questions. It's really not it because I usually take about an hour and a half, 2 hours, but that's the framework of it. And I also have it printed out because Rebby's recruiter last week in St. Louis is like a savant. And she typed everything up. So I already sent that to you, right, Hep? So if you want to send that out, you're welcome to. But I go into a lot more depth. And here's why I think my opportunity meeting is much better now than it was. With any good sale, you have to create a problem. Otherwise, there's no need for a solution, right? So it's like you knock on my door, I'm like, I'm good. Okay. Well, I might think I'm good because I have 250 meg. You as the sales rep need to let me know that that's a problem because gig is available, right? Again, everyone was happy with DSL until they figured out they could get 25 meg, right? So what I like about this now is, if you think about it, when things get tough and people quit, right? They generally go do something that's fairly easy and fairly average. Well, I've already told you that being average is going to be a problem, right? So that maybe really isn't an option. You maybe need to just figure this out. And I'm like, and here's the solution. You know what I mean? You can, if you're good at this, you can make millions of dollars a year. I just tell it like it is. And I don't sugarcoat anything. I tell people you're gonna have to work hard. I worked extremely hard, but I like working hard, you know. I throw this in there because people will be like, well, how did you know this was the perfect job for you? I don't know. I still don't know. There's thousands of jobs out there. I don't have time to go try them all out, you know, but there's enough about this business that I like. I really like people. I would not do well sitting in a cubicle looking at a computer screen or answering the phone. I like the face-to-face. I really like the performance side of it, performance-based. I really like that you get to help train and develop people and watch them grow. I like the fact there's no cap, there's no limit, right? And I felt like I could do pretty good at it. There's also lots of things I don't like about this business, but nothing's perfect. You think playing in the NFL is the perfect job? I mean, you can get paid pretty good, but a lot of those guys can't walk at the age of 40. Is that the perfect job? I don't know. Probably isn't one, right? Maybe the Live Tour now. These guys on the Live Golf Tour, but anyway. So I'm very authentic. I throw it all out there. And again, when I do my full length version, like I go into like a little bit of detail of, you know, when you're out in the field, that little voice in your head is always going to be there. It's the same little voice that when you're on the treadmill, by the way, I call the little voice the little bitch. Everyone's got that little bitch voice, right? So when you're on the treadmill and you say, I want to run for 30 minutes, after 12 minutes, the little voice says, Rami, we don't have to do this. Nobody's chasing us. We're not in danger. We can just stop now. And you can either listen to the voice, right? Or you can shut it up. No, I'm doing it. I'm doing it, right? Because my goal is to do 30. And then you go, no. And then you get back into a rhythm and you find your groove again. And then you do the 30 minutes. The machine turns itself off. You've now got a good sweat going. The machine goes, and how do you feel after you do it? You feel great. You never regret walking out of the gym. Oh, I'm such a loser. Why did I do that? So I go into the doubts and fears, the psychology, like I go into it because I know it's going to happen. And it happened to me. But the reason I did well was because I got real clear on my goals and because I understood the business. Like I knew exactly, all right, I think I can run an office in a year or so. I think I can start opening up offices here pretty quickly. And, you know, that was my vehicle, goals, vehicle, and I'm willing to do the work. So anyway, so I just tell it the way I see it. That's probably the best way to wrap it up. So there you go, Hepster. Not quite 30 minutes, but I think we started at about 5:39. So 40 minutes. There you go. Good to know. Good to know. You don't know until you try it out, but clearly I cannot do it in 30 minutes and feel good about it.
Yeah, I'll pass along the notes. I mean, Ed was, so was it Rebby's recruiter who took those feverish notes?
Yeah, so there's some typos and,
yes.
You know, if you want, I can go read through it and correct the things, but you'll get the gist of it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's 11-page Word document. So buckle up, you guys. I'll forward that at the end of this call. But Ed, really appreciate that. It's always great hearing how you explain things. I think everybody, at least my goal is everybody can kind of take a couple things and again, how you're articulating your opportunity, your business, like, oh, like, let me steal this, let me steal that. So Ed, much appreciated, brother. You're obviously very gifted in this department.
Thank you, buddy. Yeah, and the big thing is make it yours, right? As soon as I made my interview mine and not Brandy's, that's when I started recruiting all the sharp cats. You know what I mean? Because I'm not Brandy. I'm not going to go buy cupcakes and put a damn candle in them when it's someone's birthday. Like, it's not how I roll, but that's what she did. You know what I mean? Like, we're different. So make it yours and tell your story and what motivates you, and people can feel that. And at the end of the day, they're not really following the business, they're following you. You know, same thing in the field. They're not really buying Verizon or AT&T or whatever. They're they're buying the sales rep. You know what I mean? They're buying you. So just make it your own and make sure that you are crystal clear on what you're doing, because it's very hard to follow somebody that doesn't know where they're going. And you know, yeah, just by definition, it's very hard to follow you with confidence. If I'm like, Jamie, where are you going? I have no idea. Trying to see where we end up. Like, no, I'll at least follow this guy who at least seems like he knows where he's going. So I used to tell people, I'm going to have an office by the end of the year. I'm going to have 3 by the end of the, you know, whatever. Because then, and you have to have goals big enough to incorporate the goals of the motivated person in the room. Because then they can be like, all right, well, I could fit into that. I could be one of those officers. Make sense?
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you, Ed. I'm looking forward to seeing you at NatCon, my friend.
See you there. All right, guys. Have a good evening.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.